In this video, I am going to demonstrate how to insert, update, delete and search operation of SQL Server using Visual Studio C# Windows Form. First, let's learn how to insert data into the SQL Server. So double click on the insert button. Let's first add some namespaces. So scroll on to the top and type here using system.data.SQL client or SQL client. After this, add using system.configuration. These two namespaces are used for connecting SQL Server database. Now let's add some references. So right click on the references, then click on add reference, and in the search bar type here configuration and check this system.configuration and click on OK. This is the design of my table. My table name is registration and my database is school. Now let's try to connect this database. So double click on the app.config file, and in the configuration tag add a tag that is connection string, and in the connection string add another tag that is add then name. You can give any name of your choice. I will give here data underscore connection. You can give any name of your choice. After this, connection string. Now click on the server explorer, right click data connection, then click on add connection, click on sense. If you make sure you select this Microsoft SQL Server and click on OK. If you are using SQL Express, that is free version, then in the server name type /SQL Express and select authentication mode to Windows authentication and select the database name. I am right now using full version, so click on the server name drop down and select the server name, SQL Server name, and in the authentication select SQL Server authentication, and in the username type the username and password of your SQL Server and select the database name. My database is school, and click on test connection and click on OK, then click on OK. Then right click on the connection, then click on properties, then click on the connection string, Ctrl A, Ctrl C, copy it and paste it over this connection string. We have to change this asterisk with the password of your SQL Server, that is admin@123, and save it. I am writing the connection string over this app.config file, so that if there is any change in the password of the SQL Server or change in the IP address of the server, then we will change only in this here, and it will be affected on all Windows form and all button click event or on all event, so that we will not write this connection string over and over on all Windows form or on all button click. We will write only in this app.config file, and it will be affected on all Windows form and all on button click or any other event. Now let's write the code for inserting data into the SQL Server. So double click on the insert button, and I will paste the code for inserting data into the SQL Server. The first line of code is for connecting SQL Server database. I am declaring SQL connection as con. In this first line, I have to add one connection string name. So click on the Solution Explorer, double click on the app.config file and copy this connection string name, that is data underscore connection, and paste it over this connection string and in the double quote. The first line of code is for connecting SQL Server database, and the second line of code is for inserting data into the SQL Server. I am declaring SQL command cmd, and its command is insert into registration. Registration here is the name of my table. My table is registration, and it has three field: ID, name and address. So insert into registration means insert into table registration. ID, name and address is the field of this table, and its value will be taken from tb underscore id, tb underscore name, and tb underscore address, which is the name of this text box. That is tb underscore, that is the name of this text box, tb underscore id, tb underscore name, and tb underscore address, which is the name of this text box. So its value will be taken from this text box, and the connection is con. I have minimized the font so that you can copy the code. Now I use try and catch so that if there is any error occur during the connection and inserting data into the SQL Server, then the system will not crash. Now in the try, I have opened the connection and execute the, that is con.open means connection will be open and SQL command will be executed. If it is successful, then it will display successful on this lb underscore display. lb underscore display is the name of this label. That's the name of this label. So type F4, which is the name of this label. That is lb underscore display, which is the name of this label. So if it is successful, it will display successful on this lb underscore display, and connection will be closed. Now let's run the project and see whether data insertion is successful or not. So type F5 and run the project, and in the ID type here 1, in the name here Rahul, and in the address New Delhi, and click on the insert button. It displays save successful, so it is successful. Now let's see the database. Right click on the table and click on edit top 200 rows. So data is inserted into the SQL Server. Now let's try to display the data in this data grid view. In this project, I have used some tools from the text box. First one is the button, second one is the label, and the third one is the text box. You can change the name of the text box. Simply drag and drop this text box onto the Windows form and select the text box and simply type F4, and you can change the name of the text box. Scroll down and change this text box names according to your requirement. So I will declare tb underscore name. So I will delete this text box. Now let's try to write the code for displaying data in the data grid view. So double click on the insert button. First let's write a function for displaying data in the data grid view. Private void display underscore data grid view. This is the function. In this function I am going to write the code for displaying data in the data grid view. So this is the code for displaying data in the data grid view. The first line of code is for connecting SQL Server database. In this code I have to use one connection, data connection name, SQL Server data connection name. So click on Solution Explorer, double click on app.config file and copy this data connection name and paste it over this double quote. The first line is for connecting SQL Server database. The second line is for SQL command, and the command is select. So select ID, name, and address, which is the field of this table, and the table name registration, and its connection is con. And the connection will be open, and I am declaring DA as SQL data adapter, and declaring dataset DS as new dataset, and data adapter will be filled by this dataset from the table registration, and data grid view data source will be from the table registration, and the connection will be closed. This is the code for displaying data in the data grid view. I am writing it in a function because I am writing the code in a function so that we don't need to write this code again and again. We will simply call this name, and this line of code will be executed. So I will copy this function name and paste it over the event, button click event where this function is required. So double click on insert button. This is the code for inserting data into the SQL Server database, and I like to display the result or display the data of the grid view, data in the data grid view. So I will simply paste the function here so that the data in the data grid view will be displayed. Now let's run this project and see the output. So type F5 and run the project. Now in the ID I will type here 2 and here Tom and New York, and click on the save button. So the data in the data grid view is displayed here. Now let's write the code for updating SQL Server database. So double click the update button and I will paste the code for updating SQL Server database. The first line of code is for connecting SQL Server. I am declaring a string str and running the string, and the connection will be open and the string will be filled by this update query. So the query is update registration, means the table name, and setting the name with the name of this tb underscore name and address by the tb underscore address where id is tb underscore id, which is this text box whose name is tb underscore id and name is the tb underscore name and address by this tb underscore address. And I am declaring a SQL command and its parameter is str and con, and SQL command will be executed, and if it is successful, and it will display update successful on the lb underscore display. And I am calling the function display underscore data grid view to display data in the data grid view. Now let's write the code for deleting SQL Server database. So double click on the delete button and I will paste the code for deleting SQL Server database. This is the code for deleting SQL Server database, and the first line is for connecting SQL Server database, and I am declaring a string str and nulling the string, and the connection will be open and the string will be filled by this query, that is delete registration, means name of this table where id is tb underscore id, which was the id name of the tb underscore id. And SQL command will be, I am declaring SQL command cmd and its parameter will be str and con, and SQL command will execute it, and if it's successful it will display delete successful and connection will be closed, and I am calling the function display underscore data grid view to display data in the data grid view. This is the code for deleting SQL Server database. Now let's write the code for reading or searching SQL Server database. So double click on the search button and I will paste the code for searching SQL Server database. First line is for connecting SQL Server database, and I am declaring a string str and nulling the string. Connection will be open and the string will be filled by this SQL query select id, which is the fill name of this table registration, id name and address from registration where id is equal to tb underscore id underscore search, which is the name of this text box. So tb underscore id underscore search, and I am declaring SQL command cmd and its parameter is str and con, and I am declaring SQL data adapter reader, that is SQL reader will be executing cmd command, and if it is successful then it will display the result in the tb underscore id by the reader 0.2string, which is the array. Since it is an array, the first id will be equal to 0 and name will be corresponding to 1 and address will be 2. Since array start from 0, so tbid will be displayed by the data fetched from this id. So tbid will be displayed by data fetched from this field id, and name will be fetch data from this name, and TP address will be display data fetch from this address, from this query. And if it is not and if the data is not available, then it will display ID does not exist, and the connection will be closed. I am minimizing the font so that you can copy the code. Now let's run the project and see all my code is working or not. First let's test insert. So ID will be 3, then James India, and click on insert. So the insert is successful. So 3 James India. Now let's check update. So change this name with James Bond and click on update. So James Bond update is successful. Now let's delete this ID number 3. So click on delete. So it is delete successful. Now let's test search. So type ID 2 and click on search. So all the field is displayed here. 2 Tom, New York.